Hello, I'm Dr. Larry Taylor. I'm going to be presenting the Windyday Manifesto. And why am I doing this video? To dispel the myths about batteries. I wanted to help the students that were protesting for the climate in Fribourg in Switzerland. And when I started talking to them about batteries, they didn't want to hear anything I said. They said, batteries, they're toxic, they're not ecological, you can't recycle them, you have to heat them up to high temperatures, they fight wars over the resources, they use children for labor, and let's not even talk about electrical vehicles. They have batteries, they're not ecological. Who wouldn't want electrical vehicles? Davos wouldn't. Who's Davos? It's big oil, big banking, big auto, big insurance, big chemical. But you might be saying, big insurance, won't they be paying the cleanup costs with climate problems? That's what I thought. For 20 years, I've been writing letters to the Swiss insurance companies about the climate. Never an answer. And then I finally realized it's because of their pension plans. They're based on a return on investment that is amortized until 2050, and over 3/4 of their capital is invested in fossil fuels. So there's a lot of myths or lies about batteries and renewable energy. So let's go through some of them. Batteries aren't recyclable. Today, most are recyclable up to 90%. There's even one company in Quebec that has a 100% recyclable battery. It's a technology. Improvements can be expected. You have to heat a battery up to a high temperature. Yes, you do, for a short time. What about the tar sands? The traditional extraction requires heating an entire field with steam to 350 degrees for weeks to months. They're even working on improved methods that require even higher heating. Batteries are toxic. Well, some batteries use metals that are toxic, such as cobalt. Tesla has been improving and using less cobalt in their batteries than 10 years ago. There's new developments, and future batteries could be non-toxic. And I can ask a question. If you think batteries are toxic, what about fracking and tar sands? Don't you think they aren't? The cancer rate around tar sands in Canada is over 80%. And these are cancers that have a 20 to 30 year gestation period. So in a decade, we can have 100% cancer rates. And fossil fuels are toxic. People talk about chemtrails. They believe that they're poison put into the air by airplanes. But we have 93,000 flights a day. They're correct, but that's the 93,000 flights a day. Chemtrails are contrails. We are modifying our climate as consumers. We have to fly less. Batteries aren't ecological. It does take energy to make a battery, but a battery can last up to at least 10 years in an electrical vehicle. And once its capacity is less than 60%, it has to be replaced in the vehicle. But the motor lasts decades, so you can have an EV with a brand new battery. And the battery can then be used for stationary storage for another 15 years. So that's 25 years of life with one battery. It can be recycled to over 90%, and then you make another battery with the same materials. It's a technology, and improvements can be expected. Let's talk about the energetic return on investment. Batteries, wind turbines, solar panels, they're paid off in less than 2 years, and then they give back for over 20 years. Petroleum, coal, nuclear, they're never amortized. You have an electrical car that has a coal plant for an exhaust pipe. What's wrong with the coal plant? If you say it's a dirty fossil fuel that we need to stop using, thanks for supporting my argument. But don't you know that your thermal vehicle also uses that same coal plant? Big oil uses 43% of all electricity in the world. Just at the refinery, each liter of gas or diesel uses 1.5 kilowatt hours of electricity. And that doesn't take into account the chemical products used in fracking and tar sands. So big oil has to explore, extract, transport several times, refine, and then again transport your fuel at least 1 or 2 times, as well as the highly toxic chemicals. So over half of all electricity and 1/4 of all fuel is used by big oil. The International Energy Agency director said in November 2018 that EVs won't save fuel. But He's the same that said in 2009 that they would save fuel. Was he persuaded to change his speech? We used to call that gaslighting. Or they call that gaslighting. We used to call it lying. I won't buy an electric vehicle unless I can drive 800 kilometers and charge it in 5 minutes. I often hear that from foreign workers in Switzerland. That's not possible today. That can change in years to come, or maybe not. There's some compromises for your needs for 2 days out of the year. That might depend on the price of petrol. Don't you know that it is manipulated? The price has been artificially low since June of 2014. And with an incident, the price can go up, and that could be war or the weather. And what if it was higher? What if we were paying $10 a liter, or $20 or $50 a liter? The charging system is not well developed. Well, that argument is true, but why isn't it? I talked about the IEA and the OECD. They had a plan to put in place in 2010 to have electrical vehicles take over our vehicular fleet. Germany and France were supposed to have 1 million chargers by 2015. Switzerland was supposed to have 200,000 by 2015. And industry would develop a wide range of EVs, buses, trucks, cars, and the goal would be to have 40% EV by 2017. What's the reality? Germany and France have less than 14,000 chargers, not a million. EV usage is less than 2%, and today the plans are talking maybe for 2030, 2050. What happened? The oil lobby paid 16 million euros in Brussels to block the policy. Those politicians, they can be bought cheaply. If everyone drove an EV, the electrical grid would crash. That's false. As I said, the oil industry uses more than 50% of electricity. With more electricity available, that would free up the grid, and many EVs charge at night, which would be taking advantage of that nighttime trough, cheaper electricity. The grid would become more efficient. Electricity could become cheaper. And an EV is a battery. If everyone had an EV, we would have more storage. And then we'd be able to put in place V2G, vehicle-to-grid technology. This would help us transition to a smart grid. Your vehicle could run your house, and your house could run your vehicle. We can't power a world without coal, gas, or nuclear. But have we tried? Do we really need coal, gas, and nuclear? Remember that these are heavy infrastructures, and the price of that infrastructure raises the price of electricity 2 to 3 times the cost of solar and wind. Solar and wind are the cheapest forms of electricity. And why change if fuel is so cheap? Oil prices are artificially low. It's a resource, and the price will increase with scarcity. Renewables are technologies, and they will become cheaper. And what happens when Venezuela, Iran, and Russia are under Western control? They'll have no incentive to keep the price low. And what would happen if we had a Puerto Rico-like storm? There's areas of Puerto Rico that still have no electricity. Who doesn't want to change the present system? Well, the present system doesn't want to change. They're making too much money. But aren't we already moving to EVs? In 2009, the goal was to have 40% EVs by 2017. In 2016, the goal was to have 10% by 2020. In 2018, the goal was to have 15% by 2022. In 2019, now they're talking about having 50% by 2030. They keep moving the goalposts. I live 2 kilometers from this stadium, and the other day, the Guardians were practicing underneath my window. We have to change by 2030. The IPCC report says that our target year is 2030. Most climate scientists think that's already too late. We have to act immediately, and I believe the climate scientists. What's the solution? I'm proposing the Windyday concept. That's worker co-op factories. Every city should declare a climate emergency. We install factories for the building blocks for a Green New Deal. We have to train the people for these jobs. We have to have local farms, and we should plant hemp and bamboo to replace the plastic. What are the building blocks? That's the batteries, solar panels, wind and tidal turbines, tiny homes where needed, yellow vests, and pitchforks. So, Rory Gallagher says, let's get to work. So thank you. My name's Larry Taylor. I'm with Windyday, and we're the proud sponsors of the Baffin Bay Big Wave Surf Contest. You can get your t-shirts and your yellow vests. That's for August 2019. You can order those below. Thank you very much.